Show and my guest today is Amy Sarig King. We're going to talk about the attack of the black rectangles. Amy, thanks for stopping by. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Neil. How you doing? Thanks so much
Good,
for
good.
having me.
So, what made you write this book? And again, especially we're getting close to Banned Books Week, which
Yes,
is
we are.
September 22nd to 28th.
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, the hardcover came out 2 years ago. And so this week, the paperback was released. And so that's why we're talking. What made me write the book is that back in 2018, my son, who's now a senior, was in fifth grade and he was in a literature circle. And they chose that particular, like 7 kids, we'll say, chose one of my favorite books, The Devil's Arithmetic by Jane Yolen. And when they all got their books, listeners can't see what I'm showing you. They went through them and found two areas where there were big black rectangles covering words on the page. And so they A, wanted to know what the words were, and then B, wanted to, once they figured out the words, and they feel pretty underestimated and like this is stupid. So immediately once they figured out what words were crossed out in a Holocaust novel, I might add, in a very intricate, like a very serious scene in a Holocaust novel, they wanted to find out who did it and why, and they couldn't figure out why. So slowly they go and they figure it out. In the book, in real life, I did the same thing, but after 3 meetings with the principal and whatnot, I just kept getting condescended to, much like children. I just kept being like, oh, then you wouldn't care about this if you weren't an author. And I'm like, actually, I've been many things in my life, and all of those things care very much about this. This isn't right. This is a slippery slope. And back in 2018, they were like, well, a slippery slope to what? I'm like, censorship, like actual banning books. Oh, we're not going to ban books. Well, let me tell you, things have changed since 2018. And so I accidentally was right, though I really didn't want to be. But here we are, right, Neil?
Oh, absolutely. Banning books, all the different things. And I think it's just based on specific just districts choosing what they want to do when it might not be the right thing to do. And ultimately our sense is censorship right or wrong. And that's, I guess we're not to talk about that more about the book without giving it away, but ultimately that's what this book goes through then pretty
Right.
much is
Right.
been.
I wanted to write a better outcome than what I got because I got blown off 3 times and then I had to go back to work. I had to be like, all right, like I don't have time to try and explain basic stuff to you guys, which is really interesting because these were higher level administrators. We have to remember that the art, the task of reading and the study of reading, we have experts on this, right? Like I teach grad school for children's literature. So I'm an expert on children's literature. I'm an expert on writing children's literature. There's certain parts I'm not so great at. Certain parts I'm more things that are in my wheelhouse. But there are educators out there who are highly skilled in talking to you about what reading does for the mind, what reading does for the emotion center, what reading does for a child, how reading something you don't agree with helps you, how reading something that's different from your own experience helps you, et cetera, et cetera. So it's sort of like interesting that when we come to like what you just said, these districts that are making these decisions, the people who are making the decisions are not the experts. They're making the decisions against the experts and calling the experts names, and calling them really bad names and really sort of
Yeah, but
disrespect.
see, the districts think they're Almighty God, and that's the honest truth.
Well, the
I'm a
boards do. Yeah.
former educational advocate, and when you
Yeah.
go into these districts, ultimately you are a child. We're to be told what to do. It doesn't matter your education background. We're the educators. We have the degree in education, or we have the certification in education. So sorry, or of this certification. So your opinion doesn't matter. And that's the biggest problem. I mean, ultimately, I was going back into school today to talk about to my kids that I now have primary custody with, and I went and I had the conversation with the district. I'm like, hey, don't worry, I've got this taken care of. Former teacher, educational advocate. I know IEPs were good, and they didn't look like it really seemed like I was a resource.
I
I mean,
get it.
it's like I got to, but see, if you didn't know I was an educational advocate, I do punch back because that's
Right.
the one power of having a child with special needs. You do have a little bit
Yes.
more power in the district than the
Agreed.
average parents.
Yes, I
I
have.
guess there's some reason, but I think we should all, based on our tax dollars, have that ability to be able to have a public forum and not make it where it's a dictatorship based on whatever the board thinks and things like that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's important, because I'm somebody who goes into school to my I advocate for my children as well over the years. And like, it's funny because people will say things like, well, we want to do opt in instead of opt out. I'm like, listen, why are you doing that? Listen, you can opt your child out of any book. And then I love being able to look at them and saying, I've opted my child out of books because of the experiences they've had in their life. There's a reason why they really shouldn't read certain things. It's going to be right now, maybe later, if they'd like to read, Persephone later, that's fine, but not right now. And so it's just sort of, it's we have that power inside of every school curriculum, every school sort of policy has that opt-out built in, but it's not good enough for some people. They want to tell you what your kids are allowed to read. They want to tell me what my kids are allowed to read based on what they think about A, B, or C. Well, I think all kinds of things, but nobody's but if I went in there and said, I'm a pacifist, I don't want any books about war anymore, take them all out, they'd be like, you're crazy. And I'm like, that's the exact same as taking books about the queer experience, the LGBTQ experience, or more, lately, I mean, the biggest ones are history. There's LGBTQ community has always been an easy target. Queer kids have always been an easy target for adults who have hate. But this recent push I mean, there's a school across the river from me here in Pennsylvania that banned, those little who is books, the little chapter books about who is this guy or who is this person.
I think a little bit,
Like,
not for sure. Yeah.
right, like who is Harriet Tubman or whatever, but they banned who is Martin Luther King Jr. They banned who is Sonia Sotomayor down in this school district. And most of that list was absolutely racist. It was absolutely anything about civil rights, anything about slavery. They were just Some of them were just banning books where they were Black characters. It was the weirdest list I'd seen from the Central York School District in Pennsylvania.
Oh my
And you know
God.
who overturned that? It wasn't people like us, we were all grad school profs writing these letters, and our program wrote these letters because we're experts in children's lit. No. The people who overturned, no, it wasn't the parents who came to the school board meetings and fought hard. It was the kids who were like threatened with getting in trouble every day. It started with seniors. They brought the signs, hands off our books. And then little by little,
Wow.
those protests grew. Look up the Central York School District when it comes to a ban. I think it was implemented. It was the first big list I saw at the same time, kind of that list came out of Texas and one came out, I believe, of Florida, because that makes sense.
Well, you just gotta, and then basically people got to fight for
Yeah.
sure in school censorship and books. And it goes back to specifically ideology,
Mhm.
certain things. Maybe those books shouldn't be banned, but they should be only available for certain age groups instead of we're just going to all ban them. No, we need to be better librarians. We need to
Mhm.
make sure the books are segmented in specific areas. It's there's a compromise in everything, not banning.
Right. And
Right.
I think one of the biggest things that people don't understand, like I work with a lot of survivors from a lot of different things. I've been a volunteer for wow, 45 years now. And so I've worked with so many different people in so many different countries that have survived so many different things. And here's the thing that we don't say out loud enough. Most people survive trauma before they're 18 years of age. And therefore, if there's a book in that library that you're like, oh no, I don't like that topic being around my child. Right, but what happens if something happened to your child and they haven't told you yet? Maybe that book is going to make them feel less alone. Maybe that book is going to help them, or maybe there's going to help them help their friend, or maybe it's going to help them understand that, things that were sort of tossed off in their mind before. This is the whole thing about reading. It grows us. It grows us. It grows us every day if we can read every day. I mean, which is harder and harder with these blasted phones that we now have. Because at least I don't know about you, but I have to really work to put my phone down to actually read a book. But anyway, that's the power of books. Books can really heal. I think every one of us, I think most of us probably have a book that we can remember from our childhood that went, oh yeah, that one changed me. Mine's right here, actually. It's a Paul Zindel book. I don't know if you remember Paul Zindel from your days. He wrote The
Um,
Pig Man. This is
okay. Oh,
Confessions of a Teenage
I
Baboon. I
remember
stole it from
Pigman.
my library in
Okay.
1982,
Huh.
and they know it's fine. But anyway, that's why
So
I write
so
books.
your goal of coming out now with the book, the release again, just kind of just push it out again. Is it one reason because of banned books you're out there doing the PR, or is it more about education, or just really both?
It's all of it, you know. I mean, honestly, now that it's in paperback, that means that, hey, class sets, here we go. Teachers, if you want to read this book with you, because it's a great read aloud, all the way up to like ninth grade. It's a great read aloud. It's a great read together. It's got a lot of thought provoking stuff. The paperback has a Q&A in the back too, so that's always nice. And you can get a reading guide to help you do that. It's also great for book clubs for adults too. It's a great conversational piece. But most of all, I mean, I think the big thing about the black rectangles is that, yep, they were there over the words, but Mac is also putting them over experiences in his life. He is experiencing hard things. And oftentimes we put black rectangles over the things that young people experience because we don't want to believe that they experience bad things. Well, guess what? They did
They
just like
do.
we did.
They do.
Yeah, exactly. We experience those things, they experience those things. And whoever's trying to make it so that we don't talk about bad things with kids or even just broach the topic, I don't understand that. But I mean, I think that if we follow the money, we also find out what the
Exactly.
censorship whole thing is about anyway. I don't think it's
All
necessarily
right.
about protecting kids. Anyway.
Perfect. Best place people can purchase a book. Where can we go?
Well, independent bookstores would always be my number one place to buy books. If you don't have one of those nearby, then any place you can buy books. You can buy Attack of the Black Rectangles. If you want to know more about me, I'm at www.as-king.com. Thank you.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. You're
Appreciate you.
listening and watching the Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.